Hi. Hello, good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Before we begin, I wanted to ask how many of you felt the impulse of running and doing something when you look at these sort of pictures? If you could raise your hand, I see already one, two. So most of us have an intrinsic need to go and help somebody when we see a person in distress, right? So I hope you don't have to run to me today while I'm speaking. As a short extra introduction, so I'm David, and I'm very happy to be here today to tell you a little bit about what I think can help us improve our innovation capabilities. And well, we have like 20 minutes approximately. I will try to make it as short as pedagogically possible so that we have some time to exchange some questions and concerns you might have. I will also be happy to provide the slides to any of you who would like to have them. Now, if we manage to change the slide, which is not possible. Yeah, the first slide worked, but all right. So I'm nuclear engineer by training, but I've been doing research on different areas, and I hope to tell you a little bit about one of them. But to make sure we are in the right room, I always ask my students, like, are you sure you want to be here? And I was looking at the website of the Dutch Innovation Days, and I think most of you would like to tick all these boxes, no? At least that was my case. No? I would like to be in all those sessions that are regarding the topics. So I'm trying to be a bit more pragmatic and try to focus on some of them. Ah, okay. So there should be a video.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Doesn't matter. So how many of you are familiar with this? All hands. So we are in a nerd room. So you see here Captain Kirk receiving a needle-free injection from Dr. McCoy. And you saw that apparently was painless, and the captain just went through. And then I wonder, how many of you were thinking during the pandemic, during the injections, during the vaccination, why don't we have needle-free vaccinations?
No.
Yeah, why?
I don't know, probably because it's not really a big need for many. And
All right, so you probably are not afraid of needles.
no, the reason why it's not being
Ah.
probably it's not really a help.
All right, I saw another hand here who would like to say why we didn't get needle-free vaccinations.
Maybe it's because more accurate when you have needle and you have the right doses, for example.
Yes, that's some truth to that. So I will try to tell you a little bit today about why we don't have needle-free injections for so many applications. And I have two main points I want to discuss with you today. The first one is about the quest I'm having with a research team and collaborators around the world to inject without needles. And then what I think are crucial tools to help innovate, even if you are not an engineer, even if you are not a professor, and even if you are not working in STEM disciplines. Huh? Now, this is a very painful situation. For some people, getting an injection is a big problem, and it's estimated that most of us will get a few injections if we manage to reach old age. Now, there's a problem with needles. Even well-trained nurses and doctors every now and then can prick their fingers, which is a big problem. And the statistics, which are still conservative about the fear of needles, is that about 20-25% of the population is afraid of needles. In younger kids, it's even higher. So even if you don't get convinced by these facts, imagine all the plastic and all the energy we need to bring sterilized needles to the point of injection, and then what happens after the injection took place. Welcome. I think there's space. Yes. So if we manage to reduce some of the waste generated after a needle has been used, then we could have a smaller footprint for the health sector. And if I'm not mistaken, about 8% of the waste generated in the Netherlands comes from the health sector. So if we can reduce just a tiny fraction of that amount, then we could have a better and greener planet. If we would move forward. Forward, yes, please. Yeah. So the problem with needles is that we don't need to really replace them all. And pharmaceutical companies, for good reason, have created formulations of drugs that can be delivered in different tissues, in the muscle or more superficially, because each drug can have different working depending on where you inject. Now, there's a problem. We should go forward, not backwards. As many of you might have noticed, our skin is very different, even from the person sitting next to you. But in the winter, in the summer, or if you go to a nice holiday, your skin will change, right? Now, that's one of the main reasons why it's a bit challenging to inject without needles, because, well, coming with a solution that fits all is very tough. And as the lady there was mentioning, indeed, a needle guarantees that the depth, if you really stick it deep enough, you reach the intended depth. So if you have a relatively shallow needle, you might get in the dermis, but if you need to inject deeper, imagine in the veins, then with a longer needle, you are sure, for example, you reach the muscle. Now, injecting with a needle in the superficial layers is very challenging. So you need a lot of training to inject there properly, because everybody's skin thickness is very different, depending on the part of the body, age, ethnicity, and all that. Now, needle-free injections have been around for a while. Already in the 19th century, there was a French inventor that patented a needle-free injection idea. And in US and also here in the Netherlands, it was very popular in the 60s to get needle-free injections. And well, there were some problems along the road that I can explain in a separate talk, but there are actually already a few commercial examples of needle-free injectors. Now you might be wondering, where is the innovation? Huh? So the main idea that we're trying to explore is the energy sources that you can have to inject without needles. And each of them give you a different opportunity. And in our research group, we have been focusing in one that sounds like futuristic, and I will tell you a little bit about it. Now, don't get scared. I'm not going to get into equations and super complicated technical slides. For you to take a graphical image, I don't know how many of you have had the chance to go to Japan, but if you have not, you can find YouTube videos showing that there's an employee from the subway company waiting for the moment to push everybody and close the door so that the subway can go. How many of you have seen that? Okay, so that's a good one. So that's the way we're trying to inject, kindly pushing the drugs inside the skin. So the alternative right now is coming with a bulldozer, a needle, and pushing everybody inside. So what happens, well, you destroy the wagon, and then, well, some people might get injured inside. So we want to avoid that. Now, the needle is very good at allowing you to put the liquid where you want, but then you have the wound that can get infected, people are afraid, can cause pain. So what we're trying to do, as I mentioned earlier, is to push the liquid in between the cells. And I have some cartoon representation on how we do it. We use a laser to heat a liquid inside a glass container, and then tiny droplets can travel at about 100 meters per second, and small volumes can be injected in each event. So this is a cartoon, but how it works in practice, we cannot see this injection with our own eyes. So right now at the lab, what we're doing is using very fast cameras to look at how this red liquid is injected in the skin. And I will play for you a video with a high-speed camera, and please check the counter here. In less than 1 millisecond, you'll see how the liquid becomes the needle and penetrates this gelatin. So you see, 0.2 millisecond. So it seems long, but this is actually very fast. So ideally, you want to make sure that all the liquid gets to the depth that you want, and you avoid splashback and other fluidic phenomena that are very interesting for a scientific point of view. Now, what we want to do once we have the technology ready is many are not familiar with the fact that tattoo machines can use not only for recreational purposes or, tattoo the name of your ex, but in medical applications, you can camouflage vitiligo wounds. You can also redraw the nipple of a breast cancer. By the way, men also can have breast cancer, and then the breast is removed. So by removing the nipple, you can bring back the symmetry feeling, which improves the quality of life. But, you can also think of drug delivery, the artificial pancreas, insulin pump for diabetes care, allergy tests, eye procedures, which are very cumbersome, and then, of course, Botox. But I'm not that old, so I'm not that concerned with that. Now, if you want to know about what I'm trying to do at a broader scale, please check The Future on Their Skin, which is an initiative I started a couple of years ago, and November 30, we should have the second edition. So here I'm bringing scientists, dermatologists, tattoo artists, endocrinologists, legal experts to think together how we can make sure that once we have the technology ready, or even if the technology is not yet ready, we can shorten the path it takes for that technology to be used by society. Now, if we go to the second point, it's like, what is the 3 basic tools that I think we all should have? So I have a question for you guys in the audience. What is innovation? Your? New ideas, right? That's good. Change? With a business case, okay, that's even more focus on value creation. Somebody from the upper? Disruption, right. So there are many definitions, and for me, for many years, it felt a bit like smoke, no? When you hear politicians and high-level representatives talking about it. So I decided to make my own definition, and it's when changes are made to something, and typically already exists. No? We have been reinventing the wheel every now and then. Could be a method, an idea, or product. And then comes the next question connected to it. What is an entrepreneur, or who is an entrepreneur? That's one definition. Any other?
Innovation executor.
Yes. Pioneer, right?
Someone who has commitment.
Mm-hmm. So you probably have heard a lot about entrepreneur and intrapreneur. Yeah. Yes. So not to go into many details, the basic element I think from all these people that we have been mentioning is that it's a risk taker. So you're risking something. No? In some cases could be, well, your time, could be your reputation, could be the money of somebody else or yours if you're lucky enough. But many people associate an entrepreneur with creating a company. And that is not necessarily correct. So you could be very innovative and entrepreneur from within a company, an existing institution, and that is what some people call entrepreneur. And then what I want to stress is that in the last few decades, there's a stronger example that you can also be innovator, entrepreneur, not only to make money. So you might have altruistic purposes, save the environment, and things like that. Now, very short question. I don't need that answer right now, but have you heard about Elizabeth Holmes and Terrano? So I see a lot of nodding and smiling faces. Let's see if we have time to talk about it now. So what I really want to see if you can agree with me on the fact that when you look at this is a bit overwhelming, right? So even if it's nice pictographic icons, localized, the challenges we have as human race, and if we try to bring this to younger generations and students and say, so pick your challenge, and then you go and click, and then you see all these massive documents popping out and the different initiatives, different governments, plans for the next 50 years or whatever. So this, in my view, is very overwhelming. So I try to bring it down to 3 basic elements that I think, or tools, you might be able to use right away. So an entrepreneur or expreneur, intra, extra, whatever, engineer, innovator, I think needs to match knowledge, and we can discuss later about what we mean with knowledge. But I think in the whole already we were discussing about ingenuity, disruptor. Now there's a second character which I'm trying to do here in an elegant way, which is teaching. So sometimes we think it's all about learning, but even when you get your degree and you go out in the market, you might have to teach people in your team because you bring a set of knowledge that probably doesn't exist there. So this active element of learning and teaching will have to accompany us throughout our life. And the third one, and I think the one that most people don't associate with a STEM discipline, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics people, is disconnecting about science and technology, because we are typically a stereotype as introverts, right? Now, the 3 main words I want you to take home are this. And in Dutch, I make the joke about the heilige koe, so the cow, which is kennis, overtuigingskracht, and empathy. Right? So for those not Dutch-speaking, koe is cow. So knowledge, I think most of you would agree with me, which could be, mathematics or physics or financial knowledge or knowing the phone number of the person with the money. So that can be very helpful. Persuasiveness, please don't get it confused by manipulation or trying to trick people's mind. So persuasiveness should come based on evidence and true interest on bringing a new solution to a problem. And then empathy can work in many different ways. For example, it could be empathy to your fellow team members, but could be other fellow human beings, could be empathy for the generations to come, the environment, animals. So this can be very broad. And in a very short time, because I think we are very short on time, these elements don't need to be maximized throughout your career or throughout a given innovation effort. So I try to summarize here, and I will go relatively fast so we can have some time to talk. At the beginning, you might have a great idea. I'm sure many of you think your ideas are great, and probably your moms agree with you as well. But when you try to persuade other people to join your team or to give you the money to execute your project, you need to have higher persuasiveness skills. Otherwise, you might be a great inventor, but if you cannot communicate and get it out of your head, then you are doomed. Then there's a very crucial moment when you really realize that you want to have that product or idea brought to the market. So then you really need to focus on having the right team. The idea we already established is great, and then find the money. So a combination of these three, if you have two, you can go quite far, but if you only have one, you are in a kind of a problem. And then the ultimate empathic feat is when you manage to get people to buy and enjoy your product, and then apply it in practice. Now, you could say, well, you can iterate this cycle and it seems okay, but in reality, we all know it's a messy thing, but I think you might agree with me that focusing on this empathy, persuasiveness, or knowledge, when you realize, for example, you are not extrovert, you're not the alpha, and you're not going to be the CEO of the company, then you can think, oh, who could I recruit to join the team and be the empathic officer, the CEO. So how does it work in practice? Very fast. I was persuaded to join this needle-free injection type of project because I was not aware of it. Then at some point, I got out of my lab and start talking to tattoo artists, start talking to people that really suffer from needle injections. And then I realized that there was an opportunity there. I created this initiative by persuading funding agencies to give me some money. Then I traveled to US. I got a big grant that allowed me to hire a team that is allowing me to increase the knowledge. And then you could say that there's a virtuous cycle there that then you can persuade by using media appearances. And as I said, the second edition in November 30th, stay tuned because it's quite open to the public and no entrance ticket. So if you want to know more about what I'm trying to do as professor, there's a book I wrote, and it's in bold.com because I know some people don't like Amazon. If you are at the University of Twente, it's already online available. So, and if you really need a copy and cannot afford, please send me an email. And how it looks inside has some elements of culture. So there are some superheroes there. There's some stories about my own development as a scientist. But there's also other people's stories. So I went out and interviewed other empathic engineers. For example, Connie got her PhD here in the Netherlands and is now in Africa educating new teachers. But there's also an interesting story about two guys that are capturing CO2 from air and making vodka, perfume, hand sanitizers, and then just recently, with the same technology, they are selling to the Air Force so that next war probably will be eco-friendly. So I think my time is off, and I would like to finalize by, establishing that, yes, we need entrepreneurs, but the right type. The basic ingredients, I hope you agree with me, KPE, is not key performance, blah, blah, blah. And then, we can discuss in a moment what you think was the missing ingredient, and if not, later. And thank the organizers, and of course you for listening. And I'm open for some questions.